The sound of rain hitting the metal roof mixed with the low hum of country music as the neon sign outside flickered in the darkness. Route 17 Bar and Grill. Inside, the smell of beer, smoke, and fried food filled the air. It was just another quiet evening in a small-town bar, until one moment turned everything upside down. A young waitress named Emily Carter, 24, was clearing tables with a tired but gentle smile. She had been working double shifts all week, trying to save up for her younger brother's surgery. Life had not been kind lately. Her father had passed away last year. Her mother was sick, and she was carrying the weight of her family alone. But despite the exhaustion, she kept smiling for every customer, believing that kindness someday would come back to her. That night, she didn't know her belief would be tested like never before. Before we dive deeper into this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in standing up for what's right, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with someone who might need hope today. Emily was serving a group of bikers, big men with leather vests and tattoos that told stories of pain and loyalty. They called themselves the Hells Angels chapter. Many people avoided them, judging by their rough looks. But Emily had learned that not every tough face hides a bad heart. In fact, some of them were regulars who tipped well and treated her with respect. But that night, another stranger walked in, a man no one recognized. He was tall, heavily tattooed, and clearly drunk. He slammed his helmet on the counter and shouted for a beer. Emily, keeping her calm, brought it to him with a polite nod. He looked at her with glassy eyes, his grin twisted. "You're too pretty to be working in a dump like this," he said, leaning closer. Emily tried to smile it off and moved away, but his gaze followed her like a shadow. Minutes later, as she passed by again, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her arm. The glass she was holding slipped and shattered on the floor. "Let's see who can save you now," he growled, pulling her closer. Fear flooded her face, not just fear of harm but of humiliation, of helplessness. For a split second the whole bar froze, and then chairs scraped the floor. From the back of the room a group of Hell's Angels stood up. The air grew heavy. The biggest among them, a man named Bear, turned around, his eyes cold and focused. He had seen everything. Emily's heart pounded. She had seen these men fight before, but never for her. Bear walked slowly toward the counter. His boots thudded against the wooden floor like thunder. The drunk man didn't seem to care. "What are you looking at, old man?" he sneered, tightening his grip. But Bear didn't answer. He simply stepped closer until his massive frame loomed over the man like a wall. "Let her go," Bear said, voice low but sharp. The whole bar went silent. You could hear the rain outside, the flicker of the neon, the faint crackle of the jukebox. The stranger laughed. "Or what? You gonna make me?" The next moment happened faster than Emily could blink. Bear's hand shot forward, gripping the man's wrist so tight that the drunk gasped in pain. He forced him to release her, then shoved him back against the bar. The man stumbled, nearly knocking over his drink. The other bikers surrounded him, their faces calm but deadly serious. It wasn't chaos, it was control. They weren't just fighting, they were defending someone who couldn't defend herself. Emily stumbled back, tears welling in her eyes. She didn't know whether to thank them or run. Bear turned to her gently, his expression softening. "You okay, kid?" he asked. She nodded shakily, holding her arm. The man was thrown out moments later, and the door slammed shut behind him. The rain swallowed his curses as he disappeared into the night. The bar slowly went back to its quiet hum, but Emily couldn't stop trembling. Her knees felt weak. She sat down on a stool, covering her face. Bear sat next to her, sliding a glass of water toward her. "Don't let people like that change who you are," he said quietly. "You're stronger than you think." Emily looked up at him. This giant of a man with tattoos and scars, someone the world probably feared, and saw something unexpected in his eyes. Kindness. "Thank you," she whispered. He shrugged. "We've all done things we're not proud of, but protecting someone, that's something we can still do right." The other bikers raised their glasses. "To doing right," one said, and they all clinked their drinks. The moment was simple but powerful. In that small bar on a stormy night, Emily felt something shift inside her. She had been living in fear and struggle for so long, thinking the world was cruel and uncaring. But tonight, strangers, rough, loud, misunderstood men, reminded her that humanity still existed in the most unexpected places. The next morning, she came back to work early. The broken glass was cleaned, but her heart still carried the echoes of last night. Her boss had heard what happened and offered her the day off, but she refused. "If I stop showing up because of fear," she said, "then he still wins." Later that day, Bear and a few of his brothers returned. They sat at their usual corner booth. When Emily brought them their drinks, she noticed something new. On the counter was a small envelope with her name written on it. Inside was a thick stack of cash, enough to pay for her brother's medical treatment. She looked up in disbelief. Bear just said, "The club took a vote. Family helps family." Her voice broke. "I can't take this." "Yeah, you can," Bear said, smiling faintly. "You've been fighting alone long enough." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she hugged him, something she never thought she'd do. The bikers, tough as they were, quietly turned away to give her privacy. It wasn't about pride or power anymore. It was about humanity. Over the next few weeks, Emily's life began to change. Her brother's surgery was successful. She started taking night classes to study nursing, inspired by the compassion she'd received. And every week, the Hells Angels came by for dinner, not just for the food, but to make sure she was okay. They became her unlikely family. People in town whispered stories about that night. Some exaggerated, others didn't believe it. But Emily didn't care. She knew the truth, that kindness often hides behind the roughest faces, and courage doesn't always come from heroes in uniforms. Sometimes it comes from those who've walked through darkness and still choose to protect others from it. Months later, one rainy evening, much like the first, Emily stood outside the bar, watching the neon light reflect in puddles. She thought about how far she'd come, from a frightened waitress to someone who could finally breathe without fear. She whispered into the rain, "Thank you, Bear." She didn't know if he'd ever hear it, but she knew it mattered, because some people enter your life for a few moments and leave a mark that lasts forever. If this story touched your heart, if you believe the world still has good people left, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so more people can hear stories of courage and kindness like this one. And before you go, comment below, "I believe kindness always wins." Let's see how many people still believe that even in a broken world, goodness can rise again.